Okay, welcome to the LNLA. I will turn on the light now so David can film. Eli, you're up.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
By the way, that lady took my headshots.
Did she?
Yeah.
Nice.
So thank you for inviting me. I am Eli Arnold. I am running for City Council in District 4. I know you guys aren't in District 4. But you know, wherever we can go and talk about kind of the issues facing the city, I'm happy to go talk. Because, you know, hopefully we can make some progress on some stuff here in the near future. So I heard that maybe a particular point of interest here might be talking about kind of homelessness and how do we move forward. And that's kind of my number one concern right now. Because I think it's the single issue that touches every other issue the city has. It's like kind of this like a nexus, right? So whether you're talking about the garbage problem or police capacity or ambulance capacity or the hollowing out of downtown and tourism, like it kind of touches all. And so I think it also makes it like an efficient point where like if we can fix one thing, we actually kind of fix a lot of things. So, you know, how did we get where we are? I became a police officer 7 years ago in Portland, and so I've spent hundreds of days in homeless camps. Spent part of my day today in homeless camps, and seeing something up close like kind of lets you see it with some nuance. And I feel like one of my frustrations, one of the reasons why I'm running, is because kind of like she said, I felt like the stories being told didn't quite match what I saw. And I think part of that's ideology, and part of that's just that lack of familiarity. I've never seen anybody in city council in a homeless camp before. I don't think they really know what it looks like up close. And so one of our big problems has been just misdiagnosis of the problem. Housing affordability is what gets thrown out there every time as the cause. Housing affordability is a real problem. It is serious and people struggle. But I think a lot of us are very concerned about visible homeless camps, what you see downtown, what you see in the video, spilling down the side of the highway. And that is a different thing. That is driven primarily by drug addiction and a little bit by mental illness. And I say that, just purely based on my experience. I wish it was something we could just solve with just a little bit of housing or whatever, but that's not quite what's going on. And without a correct diagnosis, we're not going to cure the disease. Martin v. Boise, I think, kind of started us down this path. The Ninth Circuit Court said, you can't just tell people you can't be homeless, you can't be out here. You got to have a place for people to go before you start enforcing these rules. And we just kind of like threw up our hands and never did anything, and which seems like a mistake to me. I think maybe we should do something. And we'll see what the Supreme Court says when they revisit this shortly. But either way, I don't think that's that high of a hurdle. So having a place where we can say, you can be here, that minimizes harm, that is more acceptable than wherever you are now, it's not that tough of a thing. And if we do that, then we can say, you can't be all these other places. You can't be in the doorway to a business, you can't be across the street from the school, and, which would be a great improvement. So, how do we do that? What does that look like? I mean, I really don't care which method we use. But one option would be to say, okay, you're already camping. Here's spots we've identified that minimize harm. You can be here. Or alternately, we could say we're going to do emergency, low-cost, immediate, just sort of a shelter option. When I was in the Army, we regularly do these large exercises, and we'd say, we need to house 1,000 people today, and we would throw up these tents in a few hours, and there you go. And, it doesn't have to be condos. That doesn't have to be the answer to allow us to start enforcing rules again. So I think, we pick whichever one of those we can negotiate out, but we have to move in that direction. And then with that, we have to remove the anonymity of homelessness. So one of the big problems is we don't know who these people We don't know why they're homeless, what issues they're working on, what help they need. Their families can't find them. If they need to go to court because they've been victimized, we need to hold a dangerous person accountable, we can't find them. If they need to go to court because they're the dangerous person, we can't find them. And so if that's a camping spot and we register it to them by name, or if we place them in a tent or whatever, we remove the anonymity, and I think we gain a lot just from that. Anybody who's been in a online forum where it's anonymous knows there's a lot of bad things that come with people being anonymous. And I think removing that and geographically stabilizing these people, we have all these nonprofits who we're giving a lot of money to, who have all these tasks, so many different services that theoretically should be helping these people. But of course you can't if you have no continuity of care. If you can't find that person tomorrow, what are you going to do today that's going to fundamentally fix the problem? If you're a fentanyl addict, it's going to take a lot of attempts to intervene before it takes. If you have schizophrenia and you're unmedicated, so we need to know where you are, and we need to know what the issue is, which means we need to finish the Built for Zero deal where we identify these people by name and what their issue is. So for me, that is like just very simple. That's the solution. That's how we move forward. And I think we gain so many sort of efficiencies from that simple stabilization geographically and remove the anonymity. And then all of our systems are strained by this population. So we're talking like 2,000 people, right? And we've spent, I think, $2 billion since 2015 on affordable housing and homeless services for this population. It has not shrunk. And ambulance service, right? We don't have enough ambulances right now. Well, to confirm my suspicions, I was talking to some ambulance crews downtown. And for downtown, they think about 80% of ambulance transports are homeless people. This is 2,000 people who are just draining the capacity of that system. I would say for arrests and for crimes downtown, it's half. It's definitely half. It may be 70%. So a tremendous amount of strain from a small population that has some really extreme needs. And so if we can make some gains with this group, we can make more progress on our capacity with ambulances, with police services, way faster than we can add capacity. So anything there, I think, is how we make ground quickly. Does anybody have any questions? That's the basics. Yeah.
Do you have any idea why the city hasn't designated a space to put them that says you can be here? Is it that difficult to find a plot of land?
Well, we got a lot of plots of land.
I know.
I think there are a couple issues. I think one is the sort of ideology part, right? There is a group of people who would argue anything less than giving them a house is fundamentally cruel.
Inhumane, yes.
Yeah, and sending them to a place that has rules is cruel. And if you have them go to a camp they have to go to, it's a concentration camp. And there's a group of people who don't have a solution except give them a house. Who are unwilling to accept anything
else.
But anybody who has children knows that when people can't self-regulate, compassion is actually providing some sort of structure there, and via that helping them return to self-regulation. I don't tell my kids when they're struggling I just go wherever you want, do whatever you want. That is not actually kindness, and I think these people are really misguided.
So the problem is these people making these decisions don't have any children.
I think, unfortunately, that group has been allowed to dominate the conversation, and that has really gotten in the way.
Which means we're spending millions of dollars to pay contractors to run villages with tiny homes on them, and so we warehouse them. I think that's called a concentration camp, and there is no mental health, no substantial care for the cost. And warehousing people is not a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, it's not cost effective.
No.
Sure.
No. And
It's not helpful.
it promotes the homeless industrial complex.
The city was gonna hire somebody that used to do with refugee camps overseas, and that person was gonna oversee that? Did that ever happen?
I'm not familiar with who that might be.
I don't know who it was, but it's somebody that they talked about it here at one of our meetings.
Yeah.
So. My other question is, are you a policeman now?
I, separate from this, am still working as a police officer.
Okay, so you
I'm unfortunately not wealthy enough to be running a campaign.
No, but I'm trying to say, you being a city council person, isn't that, how do you balance both of that?
Oh, I'd have to resign.
Huh?
I'd have to resign.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
My wife's just barely letting me come to things like this.
I didn't do both, you know?
Yeah, no, I would not be able to do that. Yeah, I think the current models take a long time to stand up, right? That housing is not coming that they're talking about anytime soon. The county hasn't shown a willingness to do the emergency front end stuff. No. And so I think it's very important that as the city, we just need to focus on that end because that's really like a missing piece. And I think the allowing people to be wherever they want, it does create this weird permissive environment where people who are struggling with, say, like a bad fentanyl addiction, they can give themselves fully over to the addiction. They're not having to worry about other things. They're not, not even minimal things. I think it's just exacerbating the problem. And I think just creating some basic rules again, would probably we'd get a little more compliance just from having rules and maybe reduce some numbers just by people choosing to be somewhere else, choosing to double up in an apartment instead of being on the street, going back home to where their family is because it's not a total free-for-all anymore.
Yeah. And I've seen much of what you've seen. I've seen psychotic episodes in camps. I've seen heroin, people on heroin that are unconscious for days and die and don't even know they're dead.
It's and seeing it up close, like it really is just uncruel.
It is cruel. It is absolutely cruel.
The people who want to push it as like some compassionate thing to have no rules, like it is really not. And if my children ended up out in one of those camps, if I got a terrible addiction and ended up in one of those camps, intervene. You know, do something. Do not let me sleep on the sidewalk in the rain for years.
Women don't fare well?
No. Yeah.
Is there any city that's we could model to, because we're not, I know we're special, but this is all across. Is there anybody that it's working anywhere?
I think that a similar problem with just kind of taking no action has existed across the West Coast, in the Ninth Circuit's area. I know, there's examples of tackling this from like Houston and other cities around the country, but they've been operating under a different legal framework. But there are some cities that are claiming some decent success stories. And none of them by just doing nothing.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
So we should be looking at what's working, what isn't,
Yeah, that seems like a good idea to me.
Yeah. I was in Ontario, Oregon, right? And their program there is that they were going to they had a fenced-in area, which used to be a gravel pit, and they told any of the homeless that they had to live there. They had the facilities whenever they would need them. They could call in, but they had to live there.
Yeah.
And it was all fenced in, and of course, Ontario's a little city, but they used, they also had homeless in Nissa and all the other ones. They just put them all there.
Yeah.
And for them, it was work.
Yeah.
The frustrating part of that is I could throw stuff at the TV all night long when I watch the city and county. They call them marginalized. Well, it's a taxpayer in Multnomah County in the city of Portland. I feel like I'm marginalized.
Sure.
And yet we can't offend them.
Yeah.
We can't move them off the street.
Yeah.
We have to tolerate it.
It's something people don't talk about very much, but this pervasive sense that there's two different standards of justice and laws. And I tell a story when it first happened to me. I'd come back from being in the Army for a long time, and 2015 I got back here, and I had a Prius, and I was driving it to get emissions tested, which seemed a little silly already. But I was like, that's what I'm required to do. I'm going to drive it to get emissions tested. And I drove past a camp that was burning like plastic in a giant pit. And just immediately I was like, why should I follow any of these rules? Do we care or don't we care? I understand. And it does damage to our social fabric. And sometimes it's hard to get people to even participate in criminal prosecution because they've lost trust that there are actually consequences or rules. for somebody who's homeless or mentally ill or drug addicted. Did you have something there?
Well, this whole, we have rights, you have a right to be addicted, and you can't lock somebody up if they don't want to be locked up. Well, he hasn't got the mental capacity to make that choice, so that needs to start with those people that are methed out and.
Yeah. Your brain can be chemically hijacked, and you can lose your capacity to look after your own interests. Yeah, and I absolutely think society needs to retain the ability to step in to help those people and to help the people who are potentially being harmed. And current system isn't working. So maybe on the plus side though, I feel like we've done so little that any positive steps we take should begin bearing fruit relatively quickly.
There's something wrong with that.
I've been watching for 7 years that we started, to get this work done. And we've probably gone back 5 more steps, and we have more people and more danger and more crud. And the longer it goes, the more people are more hooked and more this, and they just plain give up.
Yeah.
And I know I've had 3 or 4 people leave Oregon that I grew up with, and it's just like, are we all just going to fall in the pit, and the other ones are all going to be roaming around like wild, and we're just going to die because we can't take it no more?
You know what though? I'm somewhat heartened because I feel like a lot of people are having discussions like this now. It took a long time, longer than I would have thought, but I think people are realizing like this isn't kindness, this isn't working. We have to do something. So, yeah.
First, I have to say I do not like Sam Adams. I worked on both of his recall campaigns, but he did come up with the idea of those 4 large parcels of land that the city and or county owns.
Yeah.
I know people say concentration camp. Forget that.
Yeah.
That's not the way it would be. Yes, it would be fenced. It would be, they would have bathrooms, they'd have water, they'd have electricity, they would have counselors there, they would have security. And then you would know where they are if someone's looking for them or they are due to get some help and nobody can find them because they've been moved.
I think they might have just combined the program with task sites. Is that what we're still calling them?
Changed multiple times.
Yeah. So there's a new one, kind of near OMSI, that is now open and has people in there. So they brought some stuff like that online, and they're working on it. It's expensive and kind of takes some time, and I think we're going to need like a spectrum of. We need to bring everything online we can, and I just recently went to the Bybee Lakes facility, the old jail. I was really impressed with that place. Like, those people complaining about it being a jail, like it looked better than any barracks I ever did in the army.
Absolutely. It's a great place.
Yeah, and like that, and the distance actually is, I think, really beneficial for people who are dealing with addiction. If that thing was downtown, you'd be stepping out in front of somebody using it.
Absolutely.
Well, it never made sense. Sharon Kafuri was totally against it.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't close enough for services. We have internet.
Yeah.
We have all the services available.
They're offering them there.
Yeah.
And they're only at half capacity, is my understanding. So if the county has all this money sitting there, maybe they should go ahead and finish filling that thing up.
We're totally against that place because it works.
And the county doesn't work with the city. I mean, it's pretty late.
Yeah, it seemed very dysfunctional, right?
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that hopefully in May, at the very least by November, we have several new good county commissioners who are familiar with the problems and ready to do some stuff.
I hate to say it can't get any worse.
Yeah. I'm also hoping for a new district attorney. So it'll be interesting.
It seems to me like whenever they get something started and it's working, some judge will come in and block it, which is what happened just recently.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to do about that. There's no way to go around the judge or over or between them.
Well, you can always get an appeal, right? So like the Grants Pass and the Martin v. Boise is going to the Supreme Court, which we'll see what they do. We might not be held to a different standard than the rest of the country soon. I think one thing that's missing, Mayor Wheeler actually just called out a judge on the camping ban, like yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be more attention paid to like judges who are doing weird stuff.
Maybe the judge used to go out and look at some of the camps herself.
Yeah. It couldn't hurt some sort of program.
Yeah.
Ride-along program.
Right on, yeah.
Right along.
Can I suggest that the places that we put them
Yeah.
is away from residential neighborhoods and businesses?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because what you're doing is you're destroying wherever you put them, like all these safe roads villages.
Yeah.
You go around and talk to those neighbors, their property values have been destroyed, their lives have been destroyed.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, I understand. Like, who wants that next door to their house?
Yeah.
Trying to think about how do we do this fairly and still make it work. Like I said, I'm open to anything that's moving forward. My first thought is you really disperse it as widely as you can, right? You're like, you 5 people here by name, that's okay, and that way, and we already kind of have tents and RVs and everything kind of everywhere. Maybe by spreading it out, we don't make it worse on anybody than it already is, and then we start moving toward removing some people and getting them off the street. But
Well, doesn't the city or the county have some large pieces of property that are not near residential neighborhoods or businesses? Like maybe 3 or 4?
Yeah.
And like you said, put the fence around, water, electricity, doctors, professional that can get them the help. And then remove the anonymity, like you said. Identify who they are, what their needs are.
Yeah.
And from where I live along the MUP, a lot of those are criminals.
Sure.
They're anarchists. So, what are we going to do with them?
Yeah, criminals, we got to run through the criminal justice system. There's a whole bunch of things to talk about on that side. Also, but yeah, there is a lot of criminal issues within this population as well, and I think the anonymity issue will help there. Hopefully, a new DA will help there, and I think just slowly reestablishing that this is a place with like rules and expectations itself will help tamp down some of like the extreme issues.
And the people that, I've had people come from Virginia, from Palo Alto down in California, to Portland to take advantage of the lawlessness.
Sure.
And
It's,
the
it's
freebies.
what we have.
Yeah. The stats they give you about people being from here are like totally inaccurate. They're based on surveys. I've stood there while they do the survey. Police can see your criminal history. Like, this guy's got a warrant in Tennessee right now. Like he is not from here. So yes, people absolutely come here. People send family members. I've had people who are like a schizophrenic. The family lives in the Dalles. They're like, oh, there's no services here. We're gonna send you to Portland. So
Yes, huh?
we don't exist in a vacuum, and so we potentially do draw people with the choices we make.
And the last thing I'll suggest is, for the people that are advocating for this, everything's okay,
Yeah.
let's put that in their front yard.
Yeah.
No, seriously, if this is so great,
Yeah.
are you volunteering? Because if you're not, then it's not so great, so let's do something.
Yeah. I wish I heard. It was such a funny story one time. This old cop was dealing with a homeless guy, and a woman came up and was like, this man needs help. We need to do something. And he was like, I'm so happy to hear that you're concerned about this guy. Do you have a place where he can take a shower? And could you maybe make him a sandwich? And, kind of turn the table around.
And that's what I think needs to happen. Because there's a lot of people in Portland that think this is okay, whatever.
Yeah.
If you think that, are you volunteering? Your front door?
Yeah.
And if you're not,
Well, I think the attitude is shifting, so I'm hopeful that people are ready to be a little more pragmatic and outcome focused, and because we got to do something else. It's not working.
It seems like Portland, or Southeast Portland, we're stuck with a lot more of the homeless than the rest of the city.
Yeah.
We get it.
Is that true?
Site.
I can't tell you. I know a lot about downtown's homeless population.
Okay.
And I can tell you that for whatever reason, the West Hills seem to be very clear. Hills are actually your best defense against homelessness.
Whatever you boulevards off.
I don't, I guess you're in a certain mental state. You just don't like walking up there.
We're not high enough up.
Yeah.
well, if you go to East Moreland, you go to Alameda, they're nowhere. There's no RVs. I mean, if there's RVs that showed up in the West Hills, East Moreland, Alameda, they'd be gone.
You're right.
Immediately. Here, I've had them for 14 months outside my house.
And we have to do something about the RVs.
It's insane.
There's no reason why you should have a vehicle that's been no registration for years out on the street.
But ugly and the garbage, they come and they unload their garbage on each side of the place.
Yeah.
Down on 92nd, there's a tent there and it blocks the walkway because the guys can't, nobody wants to go down the walkway, our wonderful walkway.
Yeah.
But it's been there for 4 months and they put a tarp on it and it's garbage and I mean, it's horrifying and I don't know why it never gets removed. But it blocks the traffic of people and nobody's scared to drive by and there's garbage piled this high all over.
Yeah.
My mom was telling me the story. She just passed away at 98. She told me the story. I learned all about the poor farm out there, you know, where it's like minimums. And so going out and being there, we go out and eat and watch movies and drink and all the ground. But there was a place where they slept and they got up and they worked out and they grew their crops and they got fed and there was doctors and clean and it was like run more like and those people had decent place to be and a job. It makes you feel good to work and they were earning stuff like that, but it's just a skip that nobody thinks about it. In Wapato, they built this beautiful big jail and it wasn't nice enough, so it just sits empty and there is like toilets and beds and cafeteria for food, and then the police said, well, there's not enough, what was it, Mark? There's not enough, they can't walk and get to certain places. The services.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The county.
There's all these different places, and then they get turned away. But you think of these other land, a lot of land where they could be. You know, learn how to plant stuff and grow, or sow, and make something of yourself, and then pay for all this. And we'd be moving. They'd be moving along, being happier, learning that they have a skill. Doctors, a clothes, a place to eat and sleep. Everybody else would be more happier than.
Yeah.
Our towns and where we live and area, and I lived here all my life, and I've just never ever thought this, but I am really pissed about going on the other side, and it's like, you know, Beverly Hills and welcome to the dump site when we go across, you know, it's like, and it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And we have friends that I say, well, don't go up I call it the Love Canal, don't go up Knapp Street, but come up Mount Scott Boulevard, because I'm embarrassed because that's the skids down there, it's dangerous, very dangerous. And we got boats and motorcycle racing going up and down every night. Now we have to wait another 14 days for them to do another sweep. And if they're out of there 7 days, maybe, I look up the hill and I go, oh yikes, here they come again. But I mean, it gets rough up there. We have the cars burning on fire and all the stuff that you watched on that movie. It's just around us. And it makes me sad. I went to Marshall High School, Ascension Catholic School by Mount Tabor, and all around where I grew up, and it just turned, I'm embarrassed, you know, too. Like, and we used to have a pretty city. You know, we used to drive around and it looked lovely. But now it's like, exactly, here's the clean side and here's the dirty side. And we're probably pedaling as fast as we can with your own life, and you're trying to clean up, and like all of us found solutions just so that we could have sort of a decent neighborhood. Yeah. Or do I have my bulletproof vest in my hat when I go into Fred Meyer's? I'm looking around to see if anybody's got a weapon, and I'm looking to places where I'm going to duck if something comes up. You know, Mark says, run to the back of the store so you can get out, you know. But it's heartbreaking, and I'm mad too. I'm mad. I want something to happen, and you're paying your taxes, and you pick up garbage and do stuff that.
Yeah. And so
7 years I
haven't.
I haven't seen hardly nothing happen or get better.
We're 8 years into the houselessness emergency now. And you think we could be farther? Down
Something. Like the scale would go up a little teeny bit that we're making.
I recently went back to visit Germany and can confirm that you can still have a society with rules and no RVs.
Yep.
No RVs.
Because it's enforced.
Yeah. Oh, they enforce their rules.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the best idea is a forum.
Yeah.
To give these people, to give these people something to do and give some dignity back.
Yeah.
So they can produce and they can see that they're planting stuff, it's growing. You know, I think it'd be wonderful. The second thing is on the RVs. We've got one team in the city of Portland that's handling RVs. It's 4 or 5 people. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That needs to be 20, 30, 40, 50 teams.
Well, I think we probably need to change rules so it's easier just to remove them and impound them.
But we need
I don't
more
see any other way to handle it.
We need more than one team.
Yeah.
And Peabod's out there rebuilding sidewalks that were built a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
repouring driveways at Lens Park parking lot that are totally fine.
Mhm.
It's ridiculous amount of money they're wasting, Peabody is, and they're saying they don't have enough money to hire more than one team.
Well, they don't want to take those in because they're hazmat, and it's very expensive to have a hazmat team have to dismantle and dispose of that because it's contaminated.
Well, so a lot of these RVs are being used by people that are not the register owner. The register owner should be responsible for the disposal fee of that RV, so maybe they won't just give them away for free to somebody that comes and picks them up.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Didn't we have somebody here that he was a dismantler and then he was going on in his little cups?
We did.
And, yes.
That was rapid response. That's Lance. That's Lance.
Okay, but there's something about, and then anybody can go to these places and buy an RV really
Yeah.
cheap, and
Yeah.
if you can haul it off, it's yours, you
Yep.
know, type of thing.
Yep.
Back. If you cut it off there, you cut the legs off there.
And the city's stuck with a $2,500 minimum bill to dispose of these RVs. The guy that gave away for free, thinking he's doing good,
Yeah.
should be
He
responsible.
should be held responsible.
Absolutely.
Yes, they should.
Yeah. It's kind of the same thing with the boats too. My
Yeah.
Selwood Park's got like a sunk junk boat blocking the public docks. You know, kind of the same situation.
Yep.
Yeah.
So these are simple policies I think that common sense people would back and should be implemented.
Yeah.
You know, multiple teams picking up these RVs. You know, put them on a farm so they've got some dignity. And the people that are letting these RVs go for free are responsible.
Yeah, we need to make some structural changes so that when we go do a cleanup, it doesn't come back.
Yeah.
And once once we say you can be here, then we can say no more coming back here.
And then people won't come to Portland. Because there'll be consequences and rules they've got to follow. They don't want to.
There was something about, Peabody, about graffiti cleanup and so forth. Do the city or does Oregon have a thing of community service where to pay off your tickets or your fines, you would pick up garbage or paint or, you know, that kind of?
You know, I don't know any details about how the community service stuff is.
They used to have prisoners that would go out and they would clean up all along up and down the freeway, and they'd all be out there, you know, they have another person watching them, but they would all be out there. And when we grew up, and I'm on a ride with my folks every Sunday, there were signs. You throw out a gum wrapper, that's $100. Your parents put the fear of God, don't you dare throw nothing away. And that, we learned that early. You put it in the little garbage bag in your car and do that. But now, Christ, can't tell you the things that are thrown out.
I think we got to start with
the window.
getting license plates on all the cars.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah.
Good
And then
start.
we can work our way.
Well, and make sure they've got insurance.
Yeah.
So they don't hit somebody and then the other person just has liability and
Yeah.
they get hurt and they're out of work for 9 months. And the guy didn't have insurance, so they're screwed.
Yeah, no, we kind of let the whole situation of lawlessness go so far that there's such a backlog of things just to restore. Well, I recently when they saying like only 50% of vehicles in the city have current registration.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is wild.
What's with that?
And they don't have license plates, a lot of the cars.
Yeah.
They don't have license
I
plates.
do. I look up and I go,
So
there's no license plate, you know?
I don't want to steal Terrance time. I know it's only a lot of a short time. But yeah, I mean,
But
I think you had
I
to
feel
send
like we're all-
45. You're doing good.
okay, I feel like we're all on the same page, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
time to have some rules and some standards. We got to do something about our homeless situation, the RV situation. Yeah, and you know the hauling out downtown, people leaving the county. They just came out with numbers today. Like you know, a decent number of people just left, which is of course going to hurt our tax base. And I live right next to the county line. It looks the same. Well, it might look a little better across the county line. We're paying extra taxes to live on this side. You know, wow, we're not getting the benefit from that. And yeah, hopefully we can turn this into a place that you know people are really eager to go to. Again, when I got back here in 2015, it was great. You know, it was just barely starting to see some cracks, but it was so nice, and it felt amazing coming back from, well, not Afghanistan, but just being in the South. Like it was such a nice city with so many things to do, in the parks, and you know, and now you know the Max goes by. There's like one person on it, and so yeah, I think people are getting ready. I think we can like we can do some stuff this year. First, with the May election, I would encourage you to really take a look at that and let's try to get some like winners out of that primary, so we know who we're working with. And I think it's going to be a weird year. I think it's probably going to be like the most politically active year that I've ever seen in this city. And who knows how, it's going to be a real surprising November. Since nobody quite knows, like, how do you poll this? How do you predict what's going to happen?
I don't know, but I'll have to go into family services if all the weird stuff goes on, because it's like, where am I?
Yeah.
I mean, I wake up and I go, where am I anyway? And I don't like it here, Mark, anymore. It's just, some days I just want to just move myself. I get so tortipated, is the nice word, but you try not to get agitated. I go to the doctor and he says, well, don't get so upset about these things. I'm like, so I'm walking more, but it just keeps getting worse, and you just want to say, when does the buck stop? When is it going to flip? And like stuff's already happened, where you get a little bit of jubilation in you, that you feel good that there's a change in sight,
I think it happens as soon as the public like really demands it happens. And for a long time, everybody, she was talking about in the video, everybody was really cautious.
Yeah.
And we tried slogans and money didn't work. Didn't do it. So
this homeless service tax money that's coming in by the millions and millions and millions. You'd think somebody would.
Well, all these new taxes we have are
Yeah.
collecting way more money than expected.
Tax account.
Apparently aren't being managed well. Can't figure out how to spend the money.
Our tax guy doesn't like to live here anymore, so he had to move over to
Clark County.
Clark County. So now we have to go to there because
He
it's,
didn't want to pay all the homeless taxes.
We're the second highest tax city in the nation. We've got the least amount of beds for mental health and drug addiction, and we've got the second highest per capita addiction and mental health problems.
The second lowest number of police officers per capita. Like we don't look like the second highest tax city in the country.
I have a question about that. So we get all those taxes, right? We're paying massively.
Yeah.
And so we know we have all this money and we have no services for it. So what would make sense in terms of how do we account for it? Because we talk about accountability in all kinds of areas, right?
Yeah.
How do we address financial accountability from the people that are governing us? Do you have ideas on that?
Yeah, I think we've been really bad, it seems like in city and in county, about just handing money out without any clear ask or like monitoring things in place. Every single time the city auditor has done like an audit in the last 5 years, they come out and go, oh, these people have no idea what they're doing with this money. And so I think, at the most basic level, when the city gives money, we need to start saying, here's what we expect in return for it. We get some sort of agreement out of that, and we want to be able to monitor this spending.
Critically important.
Yeah. And I was just at a meeting this morning with a bunch of social service, like nonprofits, and it was just a very confusing web of organizations trying to figure out how to work together, and we should ask for things when we spend money, and we should have some way of verifying that we're getting it.
I've got one last thing to say. I'm afraid that you might be a minority voice of common sense on the new council.
Yeah.
I'm concerned we're going to get a lot of people that have the wrong ideology. I'm going to rely on Terrance and you, because I'm guessing Terrance comes from the same kind of common sense thinking. That you guys are going to do, especially here in our district.
Yeah.
I'm concerned.
Yeah. I don't know yet. And it is really important that we figure out a good council that has, 7 people with some pragmatic, practical ideas. And there are some wild people running. And there are some very practical people running. And, we need to make sure to try to get 2 reasonable people out of each district. And because you only need the 25% plus 1 to win now, that should make it easier to get people who are very pragmatic, who could not have won before. It also makes it a little easier for people who are really extreme. I think we're lucky in that at this moment the public is fed up. And so I think that bodes well for our being able to do it. We just need to identify those people.
Yep.
I will recommend, this may sound a little self-serving, but around the city, everybody's using the small donor election program. And basically candidates need 250 Portlanders to give them $5 to collect that like 9-to-1 matching money. And so what I've been doing is I just find people in the different districts who I like, and I just give them $5 to help push them toward that, like, okay, they got a stockpile of cash to like run this campaign.
Do you have a website or any way to notify us who those people you've identified?
Yeah, I'll tell you on my Instagram. And the other
Terrance
stuff.
will do it, right?
Yeah. I got some cards, I'll give you my website. And it has links to my social media. But I have been going out meeting candidates all over the city because, you know, I think now is when we start figuring out who can we work with, who do I help in the other districts, and like building that like alliance and that working relationship up front. And so, you know, I've done videos for Jesse Burke already. I'll probably put one out for Redeem here shortly. I went and met Vince Jones Dixon the other day. Had a good impression of him. Like I'm trying to go out and meet these people and find out so that the people that I talk to, like I can help, because it's gonna be a big confusing ballot.
Yeah.
I think we
Are
already
you
got
getting good vibes?
What's that?
Are you getting any good vibes from anybody where you feel like there's,
Yeah.
yeah, they're gonna get in, you know, want to get in the space shuttle with this and make things better?
Yeah. You know, I'm gonna tell you, this is just, I don't know Terrance super well. We met, but I checked up on him. So he is involved with the Focus Intervention Team that deals with gun violence. So I went and asked the cops who worked with that about it, you know, like,
Ask the cops.
and I will tell you that they would not pull any punches about telling me, and they said he's good to work with, you know, he's on the same page.
Well, that's what we need to know, and then we need to do our job, and we need to knock on doors, and we need to get people to vote.
Yeah.
So we've got to do our job.
Yeah. Yeah, I expect on my social media I will keep, you know, I met with Mariah Hudson last Monday from District 2. I will be sitting down with Stan Pinkin from District 4 next month. I'm going to meet as many people as I can, and that's what I intend to do. Like, we just got to citywide be pushing, because it's like all at once. You know, it could go any kind of way, so it's kind of incumbent to like do the work and make
Give
sure
us a
that
clue who's the good, the
that we
bad out
succeed.
there.
Yeah.
First of all,
Are they, is maybe they're gonna do any kind of candidate forum on TV?
Oh, okay.
I think there are going to be a lot of candidate forums. There have already been some radio ones. I just got a request to, I think like Cable is trying to set up a radio. There's tons of them. I think there's a mayoral one on like addiction this weekend. There's going to be so many.
Okay, and where's your section, with your district 4, where's that?
Yeah, it's the west side, west of the Willamette River, Selwood, and East Moreland.
Okay.
All right, you're done.
Time's up.
All right. Well, hey, thank you very much. And if anybody wants a card for anybody they know in the city, check the website out. I got one.
Yeah.
So how y'all doing? My name is Terrance Hayes. I feel like
Thank you.
Eli got everything, all the tough questions. Thank you, Eli, for dealing with that. I live right on 141st between Division and Powell, closer to Powell. So I am in y'all district. I think I'm a reasonable person, but I imagine after some of these questions, we'll find that out. So at the end of the day, we see it's not working, right? Everything that was promised, all the guarantees, millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, and we're worse off than what we were, right?
Wasted.
Yeah, it's wasted, it's gone. So I heard a question about money with contractors, and how do we hold them accountable? I think as a city contractor, I'll tell you that one of the biggest problems we have is that for sure, there has been consistently the same people that is taking hold of the bigger bags in contracting. And those same folks is the same people that have the relationships for 20 years, and they've been going out to coffee with the same people for 20 years. And when we try to press without answers, when we try to walk down money, the people that has been giving it out and receiving it that same money make it back to them somehow. We know this. I'm just saying, you got me on that, made me think about it. We noticed that the reason is because the same people have been protecting each other for a long time. And I think what the people in our city wanted in this charter was common sense folks that know how to execute, know what they're talking about, and is able to do the work, right? So we need officers who actually know what it means to engage with folks, whether that means in services when they have mental health struggles, or whether that means accountability when they're hurting other people in our community. One of the biggest things I struggle with as a Black Portland guy is that there was a narrative. And because there was community and police issues that we needed to work through, people took that narrative and they ran and they created a whole bunch of other stuff. And that narrative didn't help the Black community. It didn't help police officers. It didn't make things better. We could have sat at the tables. We could have talked about it. We could have worked through community concerns. And we had a lot of good officers that want to work through that stuff, that want to talk about that stuff. But the Black narrative was not controlled by Black people. I just want to repeat that for y'all. It was not, right? It was like, and please don't get offended when I say this, but generally it was like this middle-aged white woman who ran off with the narrative and never came and had honest dialogue. And then when they made all these rash decisions, the Black community paid a big cost for those decisions. And now, finally, Black folks like myself, that's really from the community, are at the tables, having real dialogue, having real conversations, and being a part of rectifying these bad decisions. The reason I'm running is because I can see what they did to East Portland. I can see how those decisions and that leveraging Black pain and Black trauma got them to do the things that they wanted to do, which is bring lawlessness to our community. We caring for folks and accountability is not contrary to each other. You can simultaneously care for somebody that's struggling with addiction and tell them they don't have a right to use that as an excuse to harm people in our community. Those things are not enemies. But when you create a narrative like that, they become enemies. And then people don't talk no more. And then y'all have folks like yourself who living in your home, and for years your voice don't matter in this space. For years you're struggling to have an opinion without the fear of being called a racist cop, for instance, if you talk about gang violence, right? And so we didn't look at people's lived experience. We didn't look at their body of work. We became more racist and more intolerant in our community because they controlled the narrative. So what I'm saying and what I'm doing is I sit on the police accountability, and it's a relational one. I work with officers in the community. I work with officers that want a better and a safer community. And I work with officers that are not looking to cause harm. And they know if they do, it's me and officers that's going to hold them accountable for that. I don't think wanting police to be good officers is an anti-police position. I think that if you make every police a bad officer, that's an anti-police position, right? So I just like to put on the record, the things I went through, I lost a cousin by a police shooting. That doesn't make me anti-police. It made me want to fight to build healthy relationships between the community and police officers so we have less incidences like that. Not because I believed every police was wicked and evil and wanted to kill Black people. It's because I took a loss that me and my family had to reconcile. We had to figure it out. And instead of getting in the street screaming foul, I called people who I knew and I started building with PPB. I started building relationships. I started bringing community members to the table. I started having honest discussion with police officers that generally, for the most part, didn't really have the lived experience to know what people were screaming about, and we started talking, right? And what I found was they were pretty much okay with listening to me, and I can talk. I need y'all to know that. But they listened to me, right? They dialogued. They exchanged their frustration. I had officers talk about what it feels like as a white officer to feel like they can't have an opinion without being called racist, right? And we navigated why that's there, why I'm not a fan of white guilt. Y'all learn that as I run my mouth. I don't believe in it. It doesn't help anything. What I believe is in community folks, white folks, Black folks, everybody in the community working together to get a better community. Do I believe that that's more training, Aaron? Certainly, right? I think, but when you look at the PPA, they believe in more training. So he ain't my enemy yet. Somehow we built a relationship out of nowhere, right? He's coming, right? Sooner or later I have to make you the bad guy. But it doesn't work, right? And so for me, we do need practical people. We do need folks in our community, specifically the East, that's going to get out there and knock on the doors and have real conversation. We need folks that's willing to put in the work. You talk about your cards. I can't wait to throw my cards around in our community. And there are some folks, see how I'm getting old, it took a long time to get that paper. I see this and somehow I made it on there. And there's a lot of other folks in our community that probably will make it to this forum at some point or run away from it because it might be a tough forum for them, right? East County has to decide that it's going to believe in people that can execute. It's got to decide that it's going to believe in honest people, and it has to decide how it's going to hold its elected people accountable when the time comes. Last time I was here, I heard a lot about like access, accountability, like show up and demand it. And if people don't listen, they can get easily voted out. That's one thing I like about this. You get the usher-in option if things don't work out. So for me, I'm telling y'all, this is my community, right? I have parents that struggle with drug addiction. I always talk about it. I don't believe because I want my parents clean that I don't care about them and their addiction. Certainly I care about my father. I love him. He's my father. Every time he decides he wants to get sober, I'll wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I drive him to Hooper, and I'll wait until they let him in. But guess what? When he decides that his addiction gets him, he can't come in my house and steal from me and my family. But he has, and it doesn't stop me from loving my dad. I just decided I can draw boundaries where I don't have to be bullied and harmed because of his addiction. But it didn't stop me from loving my dad, right? It doesn't. When it get cold, I'll open up my door for my dad because I don't want to lose him in the cold. But he doesn't get to destroy. And I think what happened is when we started supposedly caring, because I agree with you, caring is not allowing people to die there, right? When we start supposedly caring, we didn't care in a way, right? We didn't care in a parental way. We cared like your friend who gets you in a lot of bad stuff cared, right? Like, do what you want, it's fine. And that didn't work. And despite any fancy language and fancy talk, it didn't work. So we gotta care. We have to create narratives where people who are struggling can get help, but they don't get to be bullies. They don't get to cause harm in our community. And so that's what I'm guaranteeing. I'm guaranteeing that I'm gonna stand on what's right, that as much as I push for treatments and sobriety places and detox centers, I'm gonna say, but you don't get to bully the community because you have a struggle. So now we get some questions, because I feel like you took everything off the table, Eli. Yeah.
Your detox and your treatment centers, there aren't enough of them, and you have to know when somebody says, okay, I want to go, take me there now. Oh, well, I'll come back in 3 days, and if you're still right here and you still want to go, then maybe we'll have a spot for you. That's not the way it works.
Right.
There has to be more places where they can go right now.
Right. I agree. Well, I think Portland has shown that it put its money where it cares about. And clearly, no matter how many millions we put into houses, this is not solved. So I don't think that's really where it cares about. I think we would, if we really cared about the addiction crisis or the fentanyl crisis, we would invest, right? And we would get people who know what they're doing to actually execute properly. We threw money out because, people like to act like they're doing good things. We threw money out. We demonized the folks, talking about Measure 110, we demonized the folks that we demanded to go out and give recommendations. We poorly executed something that could have went well. And instead of being accountable to that, they just went back over there, made some adjustments, made people feel good, and our community is still in trouble. And those folks that struggle with addiction is not better off, y'all. And our community is not better off. So yeah, we gotta execute better. I feel like if I choose, I lose. Y'all go. Okay, there you go.
I have a question about budgeting and finances again. So we've been funding GOHS consistently. And it's really our power as a city government to attribute money to GOHS, which is really the homeless services. How do you feel about that? The fact that we keep on saying yes, we're funding. There was only one dissenting vote at the last funding. Would you vote for it or against it? What would be the criteria that would make you change?
I think the one thing we have to do immediately when it comes to money is we got to track it. We have to know where it's going. We have to know how it's being spent. We gotta get folks on city council that's gonna put the time into tracking the money down, figuring out what's working and what isn't. And then if it's working, we fund it. If it's not working, we stop funding it, right? so anything money-wise, any programs, I'm hoping, like Eli said, I'm hoping I got 7 solid people that's ready to put in the work, because we gotta figure out how we have this big old budget with all this money, but nothing is getting done. And I think because, little conspiracy theories here, but I feel like a lot of people don't like to track the money down because they benefited from it. So we gotta have regular folks. That's
Party
not.
is over. Now you gotta.
Well, I hope so. We get the right people, right? And I'll shit. But I'm gonna tell y'all about East County. Like, I feel like there's some folks that jumped in our race that ain't been a part of our community, and I'm looking for the community to call that out. I want to know how long you've been here. I want to know if you really care. Did you buy because you was controlling this charter situation, or did you buy because this is the community you loved and been a part of? I want y'all gotta hold the candidates accountable. We gotta track down what they doing, and we can't buy the nonsense. They gonna say one thing, and then when they get up there to vote, they're gonna say another different thing.
I want to ask you. You're the president of Restore Nuisance Abandonment. What is that?
So it's on the paper. So it's a graffiti removal and pressure washing company. Thus, when I said I have a contract with the city, we do graffiti removal. And I was saying this earlier, when we did the emergency declaration, I never came to our area and cleaned up. They never dispatched us over here. Not one time did I get a call to come clean graffiti up in East Portland. So I find that, and when I asked about it, I was told that we are not a priority. And clearly we're not, because that's not where they put their money at. So again, execution and accountability when it comes to money, we got to get down.
Hands in the cookie jar that shouldn't be in there.
Everybody hands in cookie jar. That's why we got to get rid of them. But we do need to demand that the East get the same pot, get the same love, that our streets get the same attention, and that we have leaders that can execute. I think it was you at the end.
No, that was my question. Was the whatever it was, the money and tracking it, and stop wasting it.
Talk to Vega Peterson.
The county got a big old bag.
Well, that's the other thing is the county's responsible for the addiction and the mental health facilities, and the city's not. So if they're not going to do their job, we're not going to support you. We're just not. You're not getting our money.
Is there a new addiction, a new recovery place on 82nd, right before?
I heard it was. Listen.
What? I go past it, but.
Foster?
No,
Is it on
on
Foster?
82nd before Powell.
Recovery Works put something on 82nd and Foster, I know that, or that area. There's been a handful. There's the residential and some drop-offs. It's like in the range of 15 beds.
Okay, it's not a large place. It's right next to a pod, a court,
But again, and I think we spoke to it earlier, it makes me really nervous that the East keep getting every part of that, right? Let me tell y'all something. I grew up poor, right? I didn't learn what it takes to buy a home by hanging around people that never bought a home. I had to hang around folks that understood the process of finances before I could put $500 up, right? Somebody had to say, you don't have to spend it. And I think what happens in our community, especially the East, is that they say, hey, we want to help, but we're not going to help you in our communities, right? We're going to drop you off in other communities, and then we're going to drain those communities. And because we actually love our houseless communities, we're showing up, we're doing our best, but you can only flood one community with so much before it starts negatively impacting it. So one of the things I'm talking about is before you get to build in the East again, we need to talk about every other county, every other district, and their commitment to our houses. Because like you said, they're not at their doorstep, right? They're screaming and yelling, but they're not impacted. We're impacted. Downtown is definitely impacted, but we're impacted. And so we want to love on people. We want to care for people, but it's just not the East burden. Like all of Portland and everybody that get to make those decisions need to be prepared to be a part of that.
Oh, I was just going to bring up, since you know a lot about the graffiti removal problem, I would like to know why the city of Portland took over from ODOT, the removal of graffiti, because obviously the city of Portland doesn't know what the hell they're doing.
No, ODOT, so that's not necessarily what happened. ODOT just released a $4 million contract. ODOT stopped investing in their highways.
But did the city take that over?
No,
because of that?
the cities could only so city can only clean city property. ODOT can only clean ODOT property. So even when we're allowing people to kind of mix up the conversation, is the truth of the matter is ODOT failed. Portland continued to barely execute, right? They got to do better. So what ODOT does put a pot of money into in Portland is camp cleanup. So they give their camp cleanup money to the city, and the city is supposed to go on ODOT property and clean that up. But ODOT, and I'm hoping to be a part of it. So maybe ODOT don't hit me too bad. But ODOT failed and continued to invest because they said they didn't have the money, and that's why in this session they finally got the money. So I'm interested to see if it actually pays out. Our city literally, and you said something. You said it was beautiful. This is one of the most amazing, beautiful, clean places I've ever been in my life. And I'm originally from Chicago, so I was happy when I came here. Like, I love Portland.
What used to be?
I came here in 1999. Right? I came here in 98, 99. And
we were getting a few good years before we started to get more.
Well, yeah, I mean, this was rolling hills, green trees. No, but in comparison to now, I don't know. I'll take that Portland over this Portland.
To now.
That's true. But for me, it was just like I said, rolling hills, green trees. It was like out of a book to me, right? And it wasn't perfect, y'all. Like, no city is perfect.
It's like Oz.
Right. But it was like, it make you want to trot through the grass or something. I love this city. I am committed to it. And if y'all don't know, I always put this on the table. As a young man, I got involved in crime. I ended up going to jail. It gave me an opportunity to realize that every narrative that they told me about me was not true. So when I came back to this city and I seen us hurting, I seen us normalizing criminal activity, I seen the way that drugs had taken over, it broke my heart. Because this city loved on me, it cared for me. And even though I made a mistake, when I came back to it, it had remedies to restore me to it. Right? So I am one of the few people that despite my past, I no longer have a criminal history because this city does believe in restoring people to it. Right? It does believe in second chances and restorative justice. Restorative justice is not contrary to accountability. Right? And I'm a prime example of what I believe happens when the city both can hold people accountable if they choose to bring harm and love and care for them when they choose to do the right thing. So I'm not going to buy into narratives where you got to take these extremes on the spectrum when in reality, most of us is in here somewhere. We just want to provide for our families. We just want to do well by people. And we want to move safely on our streets with our kids and everybody.
Is there any way for the city council members to start holding these nonprofits accountable? Mm-hmm. It's amazing to me because we don't take any city funding or county funding or any funding. How we actually get our money is doing these West Rock cleanups. Right. So we partnered with a recycling center here in town, and they give us a monthly check for going down once a week and cleaning up around the neighborhood, the dark garbage and stuff that flows into other people's yards. But I keep getting these emails. Here's a grant here. Now you're having these candidate forums. They're giving out money to neighborhoods. And Alan Combs, and I don't know if you know who he is, he's downtown. But he keeps saying, well, this would be a great place for you guys to get funding for these candidate things you're doing. I said, we don't take grant money. But I'm so tired of all these nonprofits that jump on these bandwagons to take the grant money.
Where do they get that money? That's our tax money going out. Again, nobody knows where it's going, places like that.
Is there any way for city council members to actually start investigating where
well, yeah, city council get investigated.
Okay,
because the real question is why don't they?
Well, they don't. They don't.
You know what I mean? Though, like they know people are screaming from the rooftops. Where's the money? How's it being spent? Who's executing? Right? Like. But they don't, I just don't think they really feel no pressure. I think they've been free to move us in
Who's
a
the
crazy
man
direction.
behind the curtain, basically, right?
I don't know, I'm scared of behind that curtain.
Terrance, is this gonna be one of your priorities, is to kind of, this issue? Take it on?
Yeah. So for me, because I particularly live in that space, and I literally got people camped out on the other side of my house, and I don't try to use my police friends to deal with it. I just eat it up because I think that's not right, right? We have to, right? Because I think that narrative of like to care about people and to ask them not to destroy your community has been pitted against each other, and it's not true. So for me, and now you get a little bit of my mantra, clean, safe, and affordable, right? That's what I want to focus on. I want to help get our beautiful city back, right? I want us to be safe, right? And I've already started to work to help build between police and community, especially impacted communities. I'm working with the FIT team, as we talked about, who deal with gun violence reduction, and amazing men and women, right? Willing to wrestle, willing to have tough dialogue, willing to have tough conversation. And thank you, because if I can get a few officers on an accountability group, if I can get a few of them not to throw me under the bus, I think I'm doing the right thing, right? And I'm not compromising community concerns simultaneously, right? We're walking them down. And affordability. And when I talk about affordability, I'm talking about getting the trades back into our communities. I'm talking about access to economics. I'm talking about East Portland being viable again, right? Not just where you dumping folks, but when folks come to this part of our city, they live in good, healthy lives. But we gotta protect small businesses, right? Small businesses are struggling because they breaking windows. We make policy with no accountability, but we're not paying for those windows, right? We're not doing any of those things. So for me, it's like the city got to put his money where his mouth is. If you want to free people to harm small businesses, you got to pay for it. So we have to decide who we're going to be. But for me, I think if we can get this part of Portland back healthy, we get the same love that Northeast Portland got to pull off. They voted all the laws, but they don't have those problems over there. I think we'll be fine. We got to get the trades going. We got to protect small businesses. We got to convince, especially young people coming out of high school, that the trades is a legitimate way to the middle class, especially in our country. So you will hear me talking about that a lot. I want to meet with the trades. I am an ex-tradesman. I let my electrical license lapse when I got busy with the graffiti stuff. But my family, I had a job 3 days. 2 or 3 days. I don't want y'all to quote me and call me a liar because I said 2 days somewhere. But I had a job really fast when I came home, and it was as an electrician. And it changed my life. And working hard every day, we're always talking about, like, how do we bring down recidivism? Create opportunity, right? Don't give people excuses when they make bad decisions. Tell them we have paths for you to make good ones. When you bust your butt 10 to 12 hours a day, you ain't got a lot of nonsense left in you, right? And that's what I did. I bust my butt every day when I came home. I had an amazing wife who stayed on me and challenged me to be a better version of myself. And I was able to do that, right? And of course, as a young black man, there was hurdles I had to get through. There was things, and a lot of that was internally. I had to walk through what people told me I was. And I had to let that go first off, right? And then, if you do some BS, I can call you out. But for the most part, when I was able to deal with my own stuff, then I just grind every day and things got better.
You just made a great brought up a great question for me. Can we get rid of the DEI bullshit?
DEI is what for you?
The DEI bullshit of the city.
Well, I'll tell you the biggest problem with DEI is just like all money, when you track it, it doesn't seem to show up. And I'm going to be honest with you, the biggest problem with DEI is that it actually is not impacting the black and brown communities like it say it was supposed to, so it hasn't worked out. What I do believe in, though, is that we have to, if hypothetically there was boundaries created as a community, we got to knock that down.
Absolutely. Right?
And everybody's supposed to be able to come to this table, make money, do well for their families, right? We do not ever act like it didn't happen, but we don't create other handicaps for other folks because of it.
All I'm saying is that.
Say it.
What's the job of these people that are working in the DEI department at the city of Portland? What are they accomplishing besides dividing us?
You don't do that to me, huh?
You know what I'm saying?
Wait, what let me tell you this.
DEI anyway?
No, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Let me tell you this. One of the challenges I had when I applied for a job, I actually am a community advisor for the gun violence reduction model, for the ceasefire model. And I got an offer for that job. And that offer pissed me off, excuse me, y'all. Because it's interesting, because when you talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, all the things that uniquely tailored me for this job was my cultural experience.
Yeah.
And they had no reference point for it. So it's BS, right? Because if it's all about diversity, equity, and inclusion, you're supposed to take people lived experience, cultural experiences. I always use this example. If you're in the Native American community, right, and they come up with a program to help fight alcoholism in the Native American community, and then somebody in the Native American community who struggled with alcohol but fought, beat it, they're elder, they impact their community, and you say, well, we don't have a matrix to take that into consideration when we're determining your value. It's all lip service, and if it's not really impacting communities, and you still gotta have very qualified people, right? I don't believe in that. But if it's not impacting communities in a way that's changing communities, it's lip service. And what you're saying is that all the people, you spend $1 million hiring people to do diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you actually don't see it show up in real life, right? Yeah. So it's $1 million wasted, the communities are still struggling, and black folks who are qualified and want to be there, there's still no real path and no real conversation about it. So my challenge with them would be, to your point, why are they hiring certain folks? What even make you qualified to be a diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator, right? And show me the numbers. Like any numbers, we have to go back and look at those numbers and see if it's actually working. And if it's not working, we get rid of it. And that's not an exemption.
So you've mentioned sort of that there have been bad decisions, which very much agree. If you had to pick 2 or 3 really concrete wrong decisions, what would they be? That the city has implemented in the past few years.
Well, that's tough. That's fair. I brought up Measure 110.
Well, the city, I mean.
The city, just
that you might be able to change.
Was going to be 7 of us, like I said. But I do think one of the things I would immediately, again, I would kick out one of the things I think I would kick out that don't work is any programs. I think we overinvested in houselessness without anything that actually get people from being houseless, right? And I'll tell you, I actually think that, Eli was talking about this, but I actually think that there's a lower percentage of, we focus on the addiction and houselessness combination. That seemed to be the big umbrella, but I actually feel like more people are at risk of houselessness because of disability, our veterans, and folks that might not can afford to live in the city, right? So what I would change is I would make sure we're dealing with those low-hanging fruit, and we're over-investing in people that are trying their hardest to stay housed, and making sure when we invest in folks that may not want it, there's 10% of people that a study showed will not take services, right? Yet we keep pouring money there. There's 90% of people that actually want to be housed, and we don't over-polarize that. So I would look at the money in those investing places, and I would make sure we're dealing with the low-hanging fruit, because I don't think we've done very well, and we've seen people get evicted because we failed in there. And then what else would I change the citywide? I think I would lean into what did the camping ban really accomplish? I think that when we think about it, because we're so overwhelmed with people camping, it actually didn't seem to change anything. I think if you're going to look at any type of bans with camping, you have to have a program and a process, and you have to have an end result. So if we're going to make decisions, and we seem to keep doing this, but we have no end result. So anything we try to create policy, if we're going to create a camping ban, we should have discussed where folks go. Right? Where's our alternative housing? Where's our big spaces that we can invest in? So I don't think a lot of stuff the city did worked, to be really honest with you. I think you got to have 7 people that have the heart, even being recorded, have the heart to say it didn't work, we should have did better. And actually our most vulnerable community is worse off, right? Is worse off than what they was a few years ago. So I think we have to really pull out the big guns. I think I gotta get a few folks that's better with numbers. I said to you more that can break them numbers down, but we gotta be courageous about it.
I have an issue when I watch the news at night, besides everybody shooting or stabbing every night, it's sickening. You know, all the places, there's Lease and there's Powell, there's Division, all that mess, but I hope that ever stops, because that's scary. But what bothers me is that downtown got blown to shit. And they all think it's getting better. They want everybody to come back and like rebuild and do this, but just like that one guy, they've knocked in his business 3 times in 1 week. The expense of all this stuff, they don't feel safe. I don't feel safe. I used to love to go to Lloyd Center and downtown. I grew, you know, that was safe, but man, I would never go downtown by myself. If, you know, I moved my doctor, I moved everything out because it's hooty down there, you know. And you know, you don't have to go somewhere and you're looking to see if anybody's got a gun or something. I worry about that because I have anxiety. You know, I think, Jesus, and I'm one of these that I'll see somebody standing across the street and nobody's stopping. We need better lighting where people don't have to run and get killed in the road, but I'll see an old person and nobody will stop. Not you, honey. But I've taken somebody and I says, what's the matter? She says, I can't get across that street because the bong, bong, bong doesn't allow the older people, or even me sometimes, I'm hustling to get across the other side. So I says, come on, we're going. So I walked out there and she was huffing and puffing and I just put my arms out like that and I just took my time with her and I had a couple of her grocery bags. We got to the other side and I says, do you have a ride? No. Oh my God, where do you live? Only about 6 blocks away. I says, here's my ID, here's my face. Is it all right if I drive you home? Okay. So I put her in my Buick. My dad would be mad because I'm supposed to be driving a Ford. Anyway, I took her home and she was so grateful that she was there and in her house with her groceries and nobody harmed her, but she has this fear that she can't get across the street. And we're pigs. There's a lot of pig people that will not stop and let somebody even have that few more seconds. And old people, they're in their wheelchairs even trying to Scooby-Doo across the street. And where is everybody's heart? Where's the respect?
I'll work backwards. One, we have a narrative about our city that we don't really have to care about people. We front like we care about people, but practically it doesn't show up.
Nope,
we lost heart, we lost care. And I think people have become overwhelmed with the decisions made and everybody's tired. Right? Again, when I came to Portland, you know, I'm from Chicago, right? When I came to Portland, it was the first place white people just openly talked to me. That was kind of cool for me. I never had it, right? Because Chicago was segregated. It got its own issues. But Portland was one of the first places where I was engaging and building meaningful relationships with people that wasn't of my same race, whatever that means, right?
I mean, I'm a 70s person.
Right. So it was a lot of love, and I think the narratives about our city has taken that away, right? Yeah. We've allowed news and people to describe Portland in a way that when folks come here, that's how they act.
It would be so joyous if it could just be clean and the poor people could have help and the rest of us, we work hard, we can have a life, but everybody's got to give a little bit to make this all work. But it's gotten so bad, it's kind of like you want to pull your hair out because it's like, you know, pickup sticks. You go, what the hell stick do we have to pick up for more money to make it be better?
It's always money, huh? You said that didn't work, Eli. We just kept more money. And I'll say, I'll say one thing. I always often hear people talk about downtown. And they talk about the empty spaces. And the only thing I do challenge people with the empty spaces is like, when COVID happened and people worked from home, a lot of people just didn't go back, right? Like, there's one thing we gotta talk about, y'all. Like, folks got, daycare is tough, right? I mean, we're not even talking about like, how do the city kind of supplement that? When people go back to work, our daycare might cost you a 2-week check. Nobody's in a rush for that, right? So I think part of, now we know downtown, I don't allow my daughters to go downtown by themselves, and they're adults and they're getting tired of me telling them what to do for sure. But so downtown has its own set of issues. I think we have to honestly kind of like put one thing here, one thing here. And I think that the safety of downtown is a real big issue. But when I talk to people that work downtown, they're not in a rush back because they're happy at home.
Yeah, they're not to use the word lazy, but I think it has to.
We're going to say they got comfortable.
Right. They
got comfortable. So people are, and now I've thought about things, right? Now we said on the what's that, Central City Task Force or whatever. Is that what it's called?
Governors, whatever.
Governor Central City Task Force. One of the things I'm talking about, I'm like, Well, we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're always talking about expanding. Like, for the most part, a lot of cultures of people haven't felt like they can afford downtown, right? Like, stop making it like this elitist space and start inviting small businesses from everywhere. Helps, you want to pay for office space and use our money to supplement the building survival. Well, they should be looking at small businesses, startup businesses, and welcoming them in, right? And as their business can grow and develop, then we scale back on that rent, help and get people flowing. But we gotta be like creative. We gotta stop repeating the same nonsense. Like, as far as safety go, we can't ignore the fact that when we had open air drug use, and no matter the good intentions of Measure 110, that didn't work. No. Right? And that drug use, that fentanyl use, I was talking to my mom and I said, my mom struggles with a crystal meth addiction, right? And my sister struggled with fentanyl. So my mom is always complaining about fentanyl, but she got her own stuff, right? And I was asking her, what is the issue with fentanyl? And she said, well, people don't sleep. And when people don't sleep, it's not good for your mental health. So there is a correlation that we're not always talking about with this mental health struggle, bro, is because fentanyl is cheap. It's easily accessible.
$1 pill. I didn't know that. Wow.
Never had a drug like that, have we? That's crazy. It's cheap, it's easily accessible, and people are not sleeping. Right? So when people don't sleep, we all meant to sleep. And so even when we talk about like, what do we do? Like when I did the emergency, you know how they do the emergency camps and for like heat or cold, and you can go, if you're a city person, you volunteer or whatever. Like I watched all these homeless people out of the East show up, get some sleep. They were, let me tell y'all, they were not violent. They were not angry.
They were warm and get to sleep.
They was tired and they was hungry. So we're talking about all the investment in houses when we could have opened up a few buildings, which would have got income into the business owners, right? We could get some economic circulating, and we could have staffed it with a few folks. And I promise you it would have been cheaper than this astronomical amount of money. So we have empty buildings, right? We have empty spaces. Why not do one or two things? Why not allow people to either sleep at night or come in, relax, charge their phones, get a little bit of rest, right? Because it's, again, everybody that struggles with houselessness is not the people that's chasing us down the street with machetes. Most people are just tired. And if we want to be humane, you get people off the streets. That's very humane. That's how you really love. It's not safe out there for people, especially women. And I heard somebody make that comment.
Right.
It's horrific how women are being treated in these camps, how they're being handled in these camps, and we call it humane, but we're not really caring for them.
Why is there so much fear that we can't help these people? What is the deal?
It's a narrative. Because the narrative, again, is spectrum. If I keep bumping into this, if I tell you that you don't need to be on the street, it means I don't love you and care about you. But what we're saying is, actually, I do love you and care about you, and I know the streets aren't good for you. But a lot of folks have been dominating the conversation for a long time. And as I openly admitted, I feel like the black narrative was leveraged to start that path of nonsense. And it didn't help black folks and it didn't help our community. And part of why it was important for me to elevate my voice is because I want to be able to call that BS out clearly, right? And as a community, we have to be done hiding from tough situations and tough conversations. And we have to be able to tell people it's not working. It didn't work for the most vulnerable people. And when you tell people to stay houseless and stay on the streets, you are not loving and caring on them. You're actually putting them at more risk.
I have a comment. My thought was you have all these nonprofits that supposedly are experts in health of some kind, mental health or whatever. Why not give them a building and say, here's a building, here's the people, make something of it, instead of just not overseeing them at all or making them any kind of accountability for what they do.
Politicians are scared of people with big voices. You scream loud enough and you start believing, if somebody yell at you loud enough, you might think they tough.
Are you Terrance?
I am Terrance.
No, are you scared of people's loud voices?
Nah, brother, listen,
how about you, man?
No, I mean, you got a officer in the ex-con. We ain't scared of much, right? Like, we ain't gonna get nervous No, what I really love about my story and my journey and where I'm at now is that people have been screaming at me a long time. And it never stopped me from doing what's right. It never stopped me from challenging those voices. And even now, right? Like, even me coming in and talk about the misleverage of the black struggle, people are going to scream at me. People are going to be mad at me. But I'm going to say what's fair and I'm going to say what's right. If they want to get on a podium and have honest dialogue, then I'm okay with that. I'm totally comfortable with the arguments, I'm telling y'all. Because I believe people in the community is tired of the BS. And everybody that's on this sheet, everybody that's in our district, saying they want to represent us, I'm super excited about whether or not they really have answers to our problems and not just repeat the same mess that got us here.
Well, you guys are responsible for letting us know.
We want to give them bad people a bus ticket to leave us.
Because they can tell us whatever they want and we won't know.
Well, I'll tell you this.
If
I did a ride-along with some Fit officers, right? And this is the first time I was on that side of the ride-along situation. But I did a ride-along with some officers. And I'm a talker, clearly, and I'm just talking and running my mouth, and they just talking, and then one of the officers go, you know, Terrance, you're all right with me. And I said, well, what I do? Like, that's nice, thank you. And he like, if you get in a car with somebody long enough, they tell you who they really are. Away from the COG, away from the oversight group, away from the politics of that space. You sit in a car with somebody long enough, and they will tell you who they are. And I would say that if you follow your candidates to every place they go, and you watch them long enough, they will tell you who they are, who they truly are. One of the first things I said when we first wrestled for the first time is I said, go back and see what I said when I lost my cousin. Go back and see what I said. If I said anything anti-police, if my challenge was not a better version, then you ain't never got to deal with me again, despite all these fancy titles I keep putting on myself, right? So I think every candidate in the East, if you watch them long enough, if you track them long enough, they will tell you who they are. Can we have the courage for the first time in a long time to call that BS out and not let them sit in that seat when the time comes? And I think y'all gotta be ready to fight with even your neighbors and people around y'all and just say, ain't we had enough? That was the same person screaming the same thing that got us in the same position. Don't give them no pass, y'all.
I have a question. Right now, how it is that you have 4 commissioners, and one does the police, and one does the parks, and one does the, you know. How are they going to do with the new one? Will there be somebody that'll be in charge, or is it?
City manager.
Because, oh, okay.
So the part of the new charter was to get away with the politics connected to politicians running bureaus, right? Because there ain't no like interstate. Like if I'm blah 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 politician, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. But you know, if I'm this person that controls the city streets, for instance, or I'm the other person that controls how we build our houseless camps, and if we're not in agreement on a political issue or we're fighting, we bring that and we're not going to work together, right? And that's why I say even now, look, I'm going to find some folks that know how to get along, shake your hand, and get some policy done. I heard you say, Eli, like, well, you know, if we can get something, you know, if we can negotiate something, because it will be negotiating. Everybody is not going to agree on everything. You got to have reasonable folks that's willing, like if you want to say, well, we need to put money towards this, we have to say, where's that money going to come from? Something might suffer, and we all have to be honest as a community about what might suffer. If you ask me, well, where the money should come from to get our streets done, I'm going to say, well, they put a lot of money in the West Hills about that streets. We need to put, right, we need to find the money. So I think that we're going to have I do think we'll have some amazing people, though. I do really believe that if y'all demand it. If y'all demand it. I really want the East to not lay down to prototypical politics. I think we're tired. We're really tired over here. So everybody, myself included, hold us accountable. Like I hear, like how do we hold them accountable? Follow them around. Chase them around long enough. Scream long enough and they're going to tell you who they are. And then as a community, we can say we don't want you. Or we do. right? Like I'm sure it's things I'm gonna say that everybody not gonna agree. I just hope I say enough that make me worth y'all talking about one day, right? But you're not gonna agree with everything. We're human.
Well, sure, you're
We
gonna
don't
have me
agree
over
with
for coffee some night, right?
yeah, wherever I know where I live. Now, I'll tell you one of the things I'm doing that actually came from last time I was here, and one of the things I kept hearing was like accountability, accessibility, right? How we gonna get into the doors or wherever we gonna hide when the time comes. And one of the things I committed to was every week or every other week, I'll announce on my website or social media or whatever that I'll have coffee at one of our local community places. And so if you want to come beat me up over there and argue with me and fight with me, then at least we'll spend some money at a local business when we do so. I think it'll help our community. I think it'll help keep me accountable. So you hold me to that, but that'll be one of the things as we talk about accessibility that I've already committed to is showing up at local community coffee shop, restaurants, bars, taverns, and putting a little money
Maybe you
into
can
our
set an
community.
example and other people do that.
Well, yeah, well, vote me. I mean, give me the 26,000 votes. I mean, I'll say, if I get the most votes, I'll say whatever example I want to say because I'll remind them that I got the most votes. So, you know, they wanted me more. You know what I mean? But I do want to be the champion in the East, if I can be real with y'all. I do want to be the guy that separates really early so that I can remind folks who going to represent us that I've been trusted by the majority of the people in this community and that I'm not going to let them do what they want to do.
Did you say you've got tents or RVs across from your home?
Yeah. I ain't exempt from that. I'm not exempt from that at all. They don't.
Where do you live?
So if you going east, when you get to 141st and Powell, you make a left, and then 141st goes right. And I live in a black and gray house right there.
You got tents right there.
No, RVs. And I'm going to tell y'all something. I had a real issue one day, and I often share this with people. I was outside with my mom and my kids. It was a nice summer day in Portland. And I was like, what is this smell? And my mom was like, it's fentanyl. It's fentanyl. And I'm like, fentanyl? My kids is out here. And at first, maybe I should have called the police and then they said they had enough going on so they couldn't get there. Or I could just go over there and knock on the RV, which is a little bit of risk. It's a little bit of risk, you know.
That's what I do.
Right, but this is my community. I love this community, and these is my babies. My babies ain't got to smell your fentanyl, so I knocked on it. Like, oh, yeah, you know how they do. You knock on the tent. I'm like, hey, I stay out of y'all way. I don't give y'all problems. Y'all not going to sit out here and smoke crystal meth. Not in front of my babies. The one thing I'm going to say is that's not what I'm going to deal with, right? You're not going to be getting so high that my baby's getting high with you. So that's why I draw the line. And I'm going to tell you, they didn't do it again. Now, I'm not going to say they didn't smoke crystal meth again. They didn't do it while my babies was outside. They actually honored it, right? They were humane, because I might have been a little aggressive. I'm not a small guy, right? I puffed up on them a little bit because I was serious about my babies. You're not going to kill my babies because you've been given the right to kill yourself. And that's a real struggle. And I'll tell you one more thing before I leave you. Those same individuals, my father OD'd on fentanyl right outside my house. Right outside my house in the trailer outside of my house. But it's not on the streets. It was my aunt. I put it there for my aunt. And it was one of them messed up days, and I allowed my father to go to my aunt's house because I draw boundaries in my home. And he OD'd. And I zoomed from my company, from our building at the time, because I thought I was going to lose my father that day from fentanyl. I really believed it. And by the time I got there, I talked about these same neighbors. They had Narcan. They had Narcan. And those are the same individuals that had the Narcan available that saved my dad. So there's always this humane side of folks, right? And there's always that interaction that even though I puffed up a little bit, I was stern and I had expectations. And those were the same individuals because, as you said, the ambulance didn't even show up because we have a shortage of what are we struggling with? So we have techs and paramedics. Thank you.
I never thought I'd ever hear that we don't have enough.
Well, the county do what they want to do. They set standards that the rest of the country don't get involved in. Yeah, it's nonsense. Yeah. So those individuals saved my dad that day. So it's this sense of like, again, accountability is not contrary to love and compassion, right? And I help them
sparks still going on.
Right, and I help them accountable to sparking up in front of my kids. but the compassion was still there because I was still humane, right? I didn't go over there kicking the door in, and I'm telling y'all, I felt like it, but that wasn't the right approach. So, our community deserves better. We deserve for the ambulance to show up, so there needs to be some balance of paramedics and techs, right? And hopefully we fight that fight when it comes. Eli, y'all, anything else?
No.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for coming. The meeting's adjourned.
Oh,